This is episode 29 of Hardly Qualified, A Prison Named Freedom, for August 9th, 2013. Just a heads up, Mummy and Daddy have a little fight in this episode, so make sure the kids are in bed. Have you ever sat around in a pub and chatted into the wee hours of the night? Ever considered the world in ways you've never before thought about, and then shared it with your friends? Welcome to Hardly Qualified, a weekly podcast recorded in Calgary, Alberta, where Will Connor and his friend Ducky get together to wax philosophical about whatever suits their fancy. With the occasional guest, they discuss society and culture, following random threads of thought wherever they may lead. So pull up a chair, grab a drink, and join the conversation, because you never know, you might be hardly qualified too. Let's get started.
This is Hardly Qualified. I'm Will, that's Ducky, and the other Will's on the other channel thing. We're here. I'm trying to be serious, but it's not working.
Have another drink, buddy.
There's no alcohol in my system, I swear to God.
Maybe that's the problem. Yeah, we should have another drunk show.
Yeah, no doubt.
Actually, no, because then that become associated with me. Yeah. Well, I have to work in a couple hours, so I can't be drunk.
We can pretend.
Yeah.
We can pretend.
I repeat myself 4 or 5 times and slur my words.
Alright.
Like, I love you, man, I love you.
I love you too, dude.
Yep, you're my best friend ever, man.
I know.
I don't say this often enough, but you're a pretty cool dude, you know.
I know. I feel all warm and fuzzy inside when I look at your picture on my screen.
Duck face planting into the snow.
in the little, white, yellow... Blue. It's actually blue. The blue box lights up around your picture.
Yes.
Oh my God. My brain has, ceased working.
Yeah, you weren't very coherent last week either. What's going on?
I really don't know. I think, you know what it is I don't have school in September, and maybe I don't have any anxiety, and my body's like, yeah, I'll relax now. So, or not, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. It would seem to me that if you had anxiety, that you want to be relaxed, right? It doesn't seem to me that if you relax, you just fall to pieces, right?
Well, thanks for that insight, Dr. Phil.
No, unless you've got some kind of regimentation in your life, then you might not be coherent enough to carry on through, and that point didn't make any sense. It just goes to show you that without proper planning, then you just kind of fall apart.
Well, I've done pretty good at planning the last couple of episodes. This one, not at all. No music, no soundscape. Didn't really have a guest until I'm like, hey, Ducky, is Willie free? So, yeah. I was thinking we could do an episode on homeopathy. So I'll explain homeopathy. Homeopathy is the process in which medicine is diluted to a point of 0. And it works like this. And that's homeopathy. Oh, you guys, forget it.
What just happened? I feel as though I missed something really big and glaring me in the face. The emptiness, that's a metaphor for the homeopathy. Oh, how it does nothing. That's right.
Do you know how you overdose on a homeopathic medication? You forget to take it.
I'm just high on life, you guys.
Hello, is this thing on?
I just can't believe that people actually believe in that shit. I mean, you water down your drink and it doesn't work. If you water down your antibiotic, it's also not going to work.
Well, it's all about the memory of what was in it.
It's all about
It's memory. Although the dilution is insane for some of them. Like a 30C dilution is 1 molecule of the original ingredient and amount of water that would be 3 times of what's actually on the planet.
Yeah.
So I don't see how that would work.
You'd have to drink a lot of water just to get that one little piece of molecule.
Well, it's the placebo effect, right? I guess it works for some.
Well, it doesn't work for cancer.
Yeah,
right?
Or
it might work for nausea.
Viruses, but psychosomatic diseases or afflictions.
Yeah. So are we talking about homeopathy this episode, or are we talking about rights?
No, well, I don't... Whatever. Okay, so, you know what's really cool is in Canada you have the right to get shot just for being on a bus now.
What? And waving a knife and attacking people.
Well...
And refusing cooperation. And
threatening. Do anything.
It doesn't matter. You don't jump onto a bus and you pull a knife and start waving it at people and then expect everybody to just give you pats on the head.
Oh, come on. That sounds like a lull fest right there. Okay, no, fine. So, let's back it up a few seconds.
Yes, please do.
So there was a guy who boarded a bus in Toronto and started threatening people, and the bus was evacuated.
No, technically, it's a streetcar.
Whatever, a form of public transportation unique to San Francisco and poor people.
Did you just say what I think you just said?
Apparently I did.
That's why there was a very low pulse. It's like dead air, oh God.
Oh my lord, I don't think we can air this podcast.
No, I think we're going to have to just cut 6 minutes to start again. It's like, hello and welcome back to Hardly Qualified. Welcome back.
Yeah.
Step right up. This is the PC version of Hardly Qualified. Our rights have been restricted due to comments made earlier on. Look, that could have been a segue, couldn't it?
This is a serious topic. We should be taking it seriously.
What kind of accent is that?
No.
I think that's supposed to be stuffy, upperclassmen.
Sure.
Oh, I can go to my upper class accent if you wish.
I can't tell the difference.
Aw. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Slum it for us. What's your slumming accent sound like?
If I were slumming it, none of you would be able to understand a word I was saying, right?
Well, let's hear it then.
That was my slumming accent.
Oh, I understood all that.
Oh, okay, that's my West Country accent.
Your dynamic range is very small, my friend.
The reason we wouldn't understand it is because you use words that we don't understand the meanings of, not that we don't recognize what words you're using.
Right, I suppose.
I don't know, if you've ever watched Hot Fuzz, that farmer who says about his guns, that's pretty much how a lot of people outside of the city do talk. But then he works if you've seen Hot Fuzz. Yeah, haven't seen Hot Fuzz. How have you not seen Hot Fuzz?
That's, okay. It's about the cop in the vampire town or whatever. Yeah,
Vampire town? What? No.
There's no vampires in Hot Fuzz, was it?
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was just like a spoof on police work, wasn't it?
No.
Yeah, it was a spoof on cop films, but like buddy cop films. Because they wanted to do kind of a Wild West film, but in the West Country. And it works brilliantly. It's amazingly funny.
Alright, well, next week I promise I'll bring my brain with me.
Okay.
And a real guest.
Well, you're a real guest.
And we'll call everybody poor.
I'm starting to sound like Tommy, aren't I?
Yeah, working man.
Working man.
Working man don't got no time for that public transit, yo.
He's doing his dissertation right now, and I was helping out editing his literature review last night, which I think is somewhat why my mind is refusing to go into first gear. And there was one part where he was talking about how, it's a risk management degree, and it's about, like, emergency management municipalities, and it's really intriguing, but kind of dry material. But there was one part where he was writing about a government mandate for erecting dikes and rivers, or along riversides, and he misspelled dike. I thought that was kind of funny.
Did you spell it with a Y or with an I?
With an I.
That's correct. That's how you spell dike.
No, it's DY, isn't it?
It's DY.
DY.
I looked it up.
Are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure
I'm pretty sure it's Y.
DI is the Americanized version, but...
Oh, look at that. Ducky used an Americanized spelling.
Are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure the DYCK, or DYC, or DYKE is...
Everybody is
Dyke with a Y is the slanderous term for lesbians.
Not according to the Oxford Dictionary.
And then
See,
dyke
Oxford,
with an
baby,
I
knows right.
is like the embankments that they use to contain rivers.
My lesbian friends agreed with my analysis on the proper use of the term.
And I agree with it as a Brit.
So, and he's actually at the University of Leicester. That's where they found King Richard.
Yay, King Richard.
So, in the parking lot,
Yeah,
Beneath the
just
parking
hanging out,
lot.
underneath it. Now, how long you gotta wait around, eh? Like, they build a parking lot over you, it's
Yeah.
like, okay,
So shall I segue this back by saying good old working man, and he doesn't like those people on buses. I wonder how he would react to someone appearing with a knife on a bus.
Right, yes, thank you. So, well, Ducky, you go ahead, you tell it, because obviously
Well,
I can't do much of anything.
Most of what I've seen has been about the outrage. The story itself is that apparently he got on a streetcar and he pulled out a knife, and everybody fled in a rampant panic because, oh my god, guy with a knife. And then the cops showed up, and the cops were all like, put down the knife! And he's like, what knife? And he's like waving it around, and then one of the cops was like, I don't like the fact that you're not putting down your knife, so I'm gonna put 9 bullets in you! And he shot him 3 times, and then, shot him 3 times, and then climbed onto the bus and put 6 more in him while he was on the ground.
Yeah.
I was going to say
and
he
then,
survive. I assume he didn't.
and then they tased him.
What?
Yeah.
I
didn't hear about that. They tased him after they put knives.
They tased him when he was dead. Sorry,
He's still moving, quick, shoot!
It's so absurd you have to laugh
Yeah.
about it. It's really,
I mean, like, on one hand, you have people who are blaming the cops for it, but I'm like, if he wasn't waving a knife around on public transit in the first place, I'm pretty sure that this wouldn't have happened.
There's still an appropriate level of response, though, surely.
Well, yeah, surely, but still, he bears some responsibility.
well, apparently he's, accepted all the consequences.
Well,
Like, that's kind of hard not to do in death.
he's not going to learn from his mistake, that's for sure.
Okay, the issue that the people of Toronto have is, and this is part of the concern that a lot of people are saying, so, what if the investigative team clears these officers saying they were following protocol? That really doesn't matter to most people. If the officer was following protocol, then the protocol was wrong.
Yeah.
If the officer wasn't following protocol, then the officer was wrong. The fact of the matter is, as it appeared on the numerous videotapes that have, because you can't walk anywhere in a city in this planet anymore without being recorded 500 times, there was, a good 7 or 8 foot distance between the officer who opened fire and the knife-wielding transit passenger. And obviously, maybe not so obviously the officer. I mean, I realize that there's a lot of nuance here. But from the public's point of view, the officer wasn't a threat. The guy was contained in a steel box.
Yeah, he was in the streetcar. It was empty. It was just him and his knife, a boy and his knife. And the officers had the streetcar surrounded, and they were outside. They were well beyond the range of injury. So the fact that, like, I don't know what rationale the police officer had, but I really doubt that I was in danger is going to be one of the reasons, or it could be a reason that I would think would hold any water. Most likely it's we're telling him what to do, he's not following our instructions, what's the next step type thing, right? Like, what do you do when somebody, rejects your authority?
Well, when they're in a bus, you just sit there and wait for them to get hungry, as far as I'm concerned. I mean,
Yeah, I would have said, wait a night.
Or you subdue them.
Right, so that way we inconvenience the entirety of the transit system. We round up, 12, 15 cops to sit on some guy who's got a knife.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Really,
no,
12 or
as
15 guys,
opposed to
which
just
means
killing
only one
somebody because he's making the number 5 late.
We know how
You have
lucky
a
we're
really
in it.
odd perspective on justice, my friend.
Goodness, imagine if the streetcar driver was ever late. You, sir, you are late by 5 minutes. Take yourself to the execution chamber. We shall get a replacement for your journey.
Yeah.
The unions would hate you.
Unions already hate me. Because I hate unions.
That occurred to me as soon as I said it. They would hate you more.
Yes.
So the people of Toronto have taken to the streets and they're protesting, and
they're not really protesting. They're
marching. They're waving signs. They have banners. That sounds.
Well, the guy's family himself has released a press conference saying that they feel sorry for the cops because they don't have any antipathy towards the police service because they understand. They're not blaming the cops for their kid's death. They just want to know why, like what the rationale was for immediately jumping to lethal force. And I'm sure it'll come out eventually, right? I mean, right now all we have is the video. We don't have any testimony from the police officers who were there. So,
well, I think it's not just this particular incident that has caused people of Toronto to react this way. We've seen this pattern of escalating violence in our police forces, and maybe it's always been there, and we're just documenting it and communicating it better, and people don't like it. When we look back to that, I can't remember the guy's name in the Vancouver airport who was tased, Dziekanski, who was tased, and again, a similar situation. He was agitated, but he was contained, and the cops overreacted, and now they're being charged and tried for perjury because they lied about it.
Well, no.
Or they've been accused of lying about it.
Well, the one guy has already been acquitted on the perjury charge.
Right, but there's 3 more.
There's 3 more, but I mean, the whole Dziekanski case is something a little bit different. He was destroying property, he was attacking people, he wasn't contained,
He was contained in a security area. He only started throwing stuff when the cops arrived.
So
anyway, there's concerns about police brutality or police going too far, and from my perspective, and I'm not saying at all that it's an easy job.
It's an incredibly thankless job. It doesn't matter what you do, you're always getting hated on by somebody.
Oh, I don't know about that. I wouldn't say that it's incredibly thankless.
It's incredibly thankless. It doesn't, look, it doesn't matter. So either, we let the guy go running around smashing shit, and we've got, the people who own that shit saying, why the fuck aren't you stopping him? So you're hating the cops for not stopping him. So you go in and stop him, and then suddenly you're being, you're authorizing police brutality. So now you've got the victim and his family who's all mad at you. It is a thankless job as a police officer. There is no win for a cop. And I can understand why they get a lot of frustration, because they get dissed and they get mistreated and they get, all kinds of, bad behavior.
And they also get
people.
Celebrated and they get venerated and they get thanked, and we teach our children to respect them and look up to them, and then it's an honorable and noble thing. Don't say it's a thankless
That's
thing.
not true.
I'm not
we
saying
have
that
entire swaths of our generation who have been taught not to trust police, who've been told that cops are the enemy. We've got entire sections of our population who refuse to talk to police, who refuse to work with them, treat them with nothing but disdain and violence. Right?
No, not right.
Yes, right.
Back up your claim. What are you talking about?
Have you ever tried to, have you ever paid attention to, when a drug deal goes bad and nobody will talk about it? There'll be 200 witnesses and nobody will cooperate with the police because they're taught that the police are the enemy by society.
I think you're watching too much TV, dude.
I think if you think that everybody loves cops, you're living in a fantasy world.
No, that's not what I said. What I'm objecting to is this idea that it's thankless.
It is thankless.
No, it's not. I think that
fucking sports heroes get more adulation than a police officer does, right? There's more people in this city who like Jerome McGinley than who like Rick Hansen.
Right?
Right?
Okay, Rick Hansen's the chief of police, so what?
Yeah. And they hate him because he's a cop.
Look, I would say that the majority of the population hates Rick Hansen just because he's a cop, or even at all, actually. He's a really good administrator and a good police officer, so I don't... Look, my point is that you can't say that police have a thankless job, that it's, they're constantly always being mistrusted and beaten on, because that's not true. It's not my experience. And I don't treat them that way. So out of a city of 1.2 million people, at least there's one person in here that respects and cooperates with police when it makes sense to do so. And thanks them when I see them walking around. So
okay, well, you're in the minority then, because...
Well, apparently everybody in the city, according to you, hates police officers.
Well, not everybody, but...
So that's my point, though. It's not a thankless job. It's a difficult job.
In every single situation a police officer finds himself, there is not one single person who doesn't hate him or her in that position.
Ugh.
I said that wrong.
Yes, you did.
Okay, whenever a police officer interacts with the public, there's always somebody who's upset with him about something. There's never a situation where a police officer is told that he did the right thing by everybody involved. Never. There is never a situation like that. Ever.
And you know this through empirical research?
No, just by the nature of what police officers do. They are antagonistic. They are against criminals. So whatever they do, they're going to be against somebody.
You have a very odd black and white view of law and order, and I honestly don't see it that way. If I get pulled over by a cop because I'm speeding, I'm not pissed off at the cop. I'm upset with myself.
Well, you're one of the very few people who are like that, because every time I see somebody who gets pulled over...
No, dude, I think I'm pretty indicative of the majority in that sense.
Really? Because, not in my experience. The vast majority of people I see who get pulled over, they complain that, what, don't you have something better to do other than sitting at a stop sign with a radar gun? Don't you have murderers and bank robbers to catch? What the fuck are you wasting your time with photo radar sitting on the side of the road?
And where are you getting your information?
From people who are fucking pulled over! I'm just...
Okay, so maybe there's...
You are the only person that I have talked to...
Maybe there's a degree of contempt within your social group, but I don't think that you can say that it's a thankless job, dude. Sorry, I won't buy that. They get a lot of respect, they get a lot of benefit, they get a lot of leeway that the rest of society doesn't get.
Well, that's definitely true.
And they deserve it, but they also deserve the scrutiny.
I don't know if that's true, but, I've even heard cops themselves talk about how they're they feel mistreated and consistently disrespected, and that it wears on them. So.
Okay, well, there's the disrespect for the individual, and there's the disrespect for authority, right? So, or the perceived authority. So, a lot of cops may get upset when you challenge their requests or their orders, but as a citizen, that's your right. In fact, that's your duty to do so, is not to just submit willingly. Hence the reason why you beaked off to that cop a couple of years ago when we got pulled over. In that interaction, and I was standing beside you, there was no malice. There was no hate there between the four of us, the two officers, and me, yourself and me. There was, I would say, maybe a little bit of playfulness on your part, playful antagonism on your part, and they didn't seem to take it personally. They were taken aback by it. They weren't accustomed to it. Am I completely wrong on this, dude?
See,
look, I'm not saying that they're held up as saints and venerated, but
no,
they're also, they don't get out of their cruisers and are pelted with stones either.
Oh, no. I mean, it's not to that extreme, definitely, but I am tempted to side with Ducky on the fact that it is a pretty, to some extent, thankless on at least one side. As I can understand where Ducky was saying that there's always one side the police are doing wrong to, in whatever level, whether that be because they are enforcing the law upon someone, or because they're using excessive force on someone else. There's always going to be someone who feels that they've been wronged by them in some way, and that's where you're going to get that antagonism come in. And I mean, I was trying to think, while you guys were talking, of a profession that has so many derogatory terms for that profession other than the police, and I can think of none?
Lawyers?
Maybe politicians?
Tax collectors?
Yeah, maybe politicians and lawyers are probably the only two. But even then, the police slang, police derogatory terms, I don't know about teachers.
They get their fair share of abuse.
Oh, goodness grief, yes they do. Yes, they definitely get their fair share of abuse, but not specific terminology built around degrading them or defaming them.
Yeah, I don't think that it's fair to say it's a thankless job. It's a difficult job. You're not always, when you're putting somebody in handcuffs, they're not going to be like, well, you know what, officer, thank you very much for arresting me after I robbed that, and your professionalism is top-notch, and I would just really like the chief's email address so I can tell them how good of a cop. Of course not.
Feedback form?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure their customer satisfaction scores are relatively low.
Good grief.
But even when they do things
the clients
correctly,
that they
they
serve
get in trouble, so I don't know.
Well, not if they're doing things correctly, though.
Yeah.
Okay, and
they're always being second-guessed, and they're always right? It's just...
But shouldn't they always be second-guessed?
But we're giving them guns and the discretion to use them.
No, we're not giving them guns. Everybody deserves a gun. They're not
people
special.
don't deserve...
Well, this could be an interesting
You
topic.
have to exert force in order to
control.
prevent people to have guns. That makes it wrong and evil and bad. So don't try we give them guns.
We do. The taxpayer pays for them.
What
we train them.
No, we don't give them guns. What we do is we abdicate our authority to them to uphold the law on our behalf.
Okay, whatever. We still equip them with weapons. Whether or not you want to, and I know you want to, and I'm not going to, so screw you. That's a completely separate argument. My point is that we give them weapons, we give them guidelines in which they're allowed to discharge them and end somebody's life. And we hold them to an absolute standard, a high standard, and we say that when you do that, we are going to tear apart that action because what we've given you is such an awesome responsibility with such huge consequences that we need to make sure that you're doing it in a manner that we as a society can tolerate for the greater good.
So I just find that funny because that's the line
For the greater good.
That's the whole point of a police force, dude. I know you would like everybody to be armed and whatnot, but that's not the society that we live in. At least
a lot of people just can't be concerned with the day-to-day, policing of their own property or their own possessions. And it's nice to have that, in air quotes, veneer, I guess, of society and the structure that society is within, because then we can carry on doing the things that we may want to do or enjoy doing as opposed to worrying about things we might have to do. It's kind of the same thing as to why
yeah, but
we moved away from agricultural society.
The same idea, though, is that police forces are not preventative. They're after the fact.
No, that's not entirely true.
I think that's mostly true. Police forces don't prevent robberies. They don't prevent muggings. They don't prevent murders and attacks. They investigate after the fact.
Unless it's a planned attack and they can.
Yeah, but how often does that happen? Right. That's why
we don't know because they don't.
The presence of police services will often dissuade random attacks against property in person.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'll agree with that.
That is sufficient in our society. We said that there's a level of policing that we will tolerate for a level of freedom, and it's a trade between security and freedom.
Mm-hmm.
I will grant you that. But to say that it's ineffective, they do have a response and recovery mode, an investigative mode, absolutely. It's like the alarm system on my house. It's not a security system. It doesn't secure my house. What it does is tells me somebody has broken into it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I totally understand that. But the fact that it's there also acts as a disincentive to anybody to come and rob my house, and they'll go to the guy next door who doesn't have one. So that shows you that demonstration of authority does work.
Mm-hmm.
And it really sucks for my neighbor if he chooses not to participate in that system. Now, home security systems or alarm systems are kind of a, if somebody wants to break in, they're going to break in, and they'll probably be able to steal what they want before my system even realizes that they're not supposed to be here. That's just kind of how these things work.
Yeah. Which is why I'm saying that if you're sitting on the doorstep with a shotgun, you put, 2 rounds into somebody, your chances of protecting your property is a lot better than having a protected by ADD sign on your front lawn.
Oh, absolutely. Or even the passiveness of having the police patrol the street. But you know what? I got better things to do than spend 24 hours on my stoop with a shotgun.
Yeah, I say you
Like
can have a little
talking
Bobby
to
out on a... Yeah, I say you can have a little Bobby out on the doorstep with like a little stool, and it's like, right, your turn for the watch, Bobby. You got 3 hours, sit there with the shotgun.
No, you're not allowed to have
but
Bobby on the watch, though, because that's exactly what we're doing with police services. It's the same idea. We're outsourcing that demand.
Yeah, except the demand is not meeting the supply.
So you have to take full responsibility and keep your ass glued to it. And I don't know what you're going to do about the back stoop.
Yeah,
But your front stoop is definitely protected.
that's why you set up landmines. But you're not allowed to.
He is one of those post-war crazies, isn't he? Do you have a bunker, Ducky? Do you have a bunker?
I wish I
He
had
lives in
a
a
bunker, but
bunker.
I just don't understand why it is that we seem so intent on handcuffing ourselves, right, in our own defense, and yet turning that authority over to people who can't protect you, who can't prevent crime from occurring.
Oh my god, do you even listen to yourself speak? Have you
Apparently
not?
he doesn't.
Do you not remember what you said at the beginning of the show?
What did I say at the
Do you
beginning?
do not see the logical disconnect in your arguments? You're arguing... Okay. Oh.
Maybe I don't. Explain where I'm wrong. Explain where I'm contradicting myself.
You just talked about the necessity of the police being able to take that guy down in the bus,
No, I didn't.
right? And now you're talking about how we as a society have surrendered our authority to people who take down people in the bus, and that's not a good thing. So which is it?
I don't remember saying that the police had the necessity to take him down. In our current standpoint, we have already abdicated our authority to the police, right? So if the police are going to do something on my behalf, it had better be something that I'm willing to do myself. And if there's some fucking crazy guy running around with a knife, you know? But that's because
And that's why we question his actions. And
that's
we
why
do
we're that's why we're in this situation, is because we have said we will not defend ourselves. We will empower the police to defend us on our behalf.
And how is this a bad thing? They're taught behavioral
Because
sciences,
the police
and they're
aren't
taught the limits of the law.
everywhere. Okay? The police cannot follow you around and protect you from crime. Only
Sure.
you are where you are all the fucking time.
But they
Yeah, but
need
that-
not
how
be
many-
everywhere all the time. I don't walk out of my street and find that I'm constantly accosted between the 3 feet between my back door and my garage.
Yes, but that doesn't change the fact that there's somebody being accosted somewhere that the police are not there to protect.
So there's a
And it
trade-off.
happens all the time.
So
And that's
what's your problem then? I'm
the-
sorry, I
the-
don't
my
understand.
You're saying that the trade-off is we sacrifice our freedom to defend ourselves for the security the police provide. That's the
Yes.
trade-off. Except the police don't provide any security. If they provided the security, you wouldn't need the freedom to defend yourself.
They do it with a
But
large
it doesn't
enough
work.
margin of error that
It doesn't
works
work.
pretty
Or
damn
if it
good.
worked, there wouldn't be any crime at all. But it doesn't work.
So what's your alternative?
That everybody should have the authority to defend themselves whichever way they want to.
I
So
do
what
have
you're
the authority
saying-
to defend myself whichever way I want to. I just choose not to carry a gun.
No, you've got the authority to hire a monitoring service to watch your house. You don't have the authority to put a tripwire across your doorway mounted to some C4, so that if somebody who doesn't know the tripwire's there breaks into your house and blows your house up and kills them.
That seems rather
I'm
excessive.
sure my insurance company would object to that.
I need
Yes.
protection from landmines,
But
please.
it's the principle of the thing that there are limits on what you as a private citizen, what
Yeah,
kind of
sure,
steps
but
you're
you're
allowed to
arguing
take
the
to
absurd.
protect.
You're arguing the edges.
I would still say that the restriction on on personal defense can be a very good thing. I mean, I don't know if you guys, as you probably have, but there was a guy on a 911 call who said that he could see some guy breaking into his neighbour's house should he go over and stop them. And the woman on the line was like, no, the police will be there very shortly. Don't engage them. Just let it carry on as it's happening because we're almost there kind of thing. Because at the end of the day, it's not up to the guy to defend his neighbour's house.
Right.
And they don't know the kind of correct force level to use. But he still said, no, that's okay. I'm going in with my shotgun. Went in, shot the guy who was trying to rob the house. I mean, I don't know how the neighbour felt about it, whether the neighbour's very appreciative that the guy shot the
Yeah.
robber. But
Do you
it's
see
still,
the
I
difference
feel
there? Do you see the difference there, though?
Yeah, but I feel it's still inappropriate force levels. There
Yes,
should be,
yes, because he was in his neighbor's fucking house.
but defending his neighbour's house.
That doesn't matter. It's not his house. It's his neighbor's house. It's his neighbor's right to defend his house. It's his neighbor's authority. It's his neighbor's responsibility to defend his own house.
Again, division of labor. That's why we have
Neighbourhood watch.
a quality of life that we do. That's why you're not out towing the fields, dude, and you get to play WoW.
Indeed.
Because you're able to leverage division of labor and bear the fruits of, our evil collectivism. And part of that includes police servicing. This is kind of this weird libertarian disconnect that I cannot buy into, is that there's this idea that the government is separate from us as opposed to of us. That somehow that there's this little cabal of, 200 people in Ottawa who are plotting with their greasy little fingers how to make our life miserable and steal from us.
Except that's exactly what they do. Unless you agree with everything that they say.
No, not at all. But you know what? I know that they try to do the best they can.
Right? Woe be to he who disagrees with the government.
What do you mean, woe be he who? I disagree with my government all the time, publicly. And on the record.
Yeah, but you don't have any power to do anything about it.
Of course I do.
No, you don't. I fucking dare you not to pay your taxes. I fucking dare you. And see how far you get. Okay?
You're assuming that strict non-compliance is the only way to affect change. You're saying that I can opt in or opt out, and that's the only way to do something.
Well, how
As
else are you going to challenge your government?
Opt in and change from within.
I can write letters, I can talk to my elected officials, I can sit in their constituency associations, I can mobilize community groups, I can write legislation, I can advocate in the media.
Right, and then when the government changes to match your perspective, and then you're happy with what the government is doing, there's a whole swath of people who are now disunhappy with the government and disenfranchised with the government. What are they supposed to do? Write letters and stuff and get the government to switch back and forth and back and forth and back and forth between the two sides of each issue?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, the problem is that we are abdicating the authority to make those decisions to the government. The government is not our mother or our father. They are not
You're only
an authority.
abdicating the authority if you're not participating, if you're not talking to your MP or your MLA or your alderman, then you've abdicated your authority. If you're not questioning your media and participating, then you're abdicating your authority.
Yes, but you're still beholden to what they decide, not what you decide. Like, do you not understand what I'm talking about? Like, is that...
I do understand what you're talking about, but the alternative that you're proposing gives me a quality of life and a lifestyle which I find untenable.
Then that's a choice you personally have to make. If you would rather have...
It is, and that's why I
if you would rather have a benevolent
my
dictatorship, then so be it. But even a benevolent dictatorship is dictatorship. Whether you have, flying cars and all the food you can eat, you're still a slave, you're still a prisoner. Just because you're in a gilded cage doesn't mean it's not a cage. And that's where you're missing the point. It's the cage that's the problem. It's not what the cage looks like or how they do it or whether you have a good life living in the cage. It's the fact that you're living in a cage. And there are a lot of people...
in a cage. It's called the planet Earth.
There are a lot of people
you can't escape it, so therefore you have to cooperate with the people that are in it with you. Right, nobody's getting out of here alive.
Right, because the government is in charge of the entire planet Earth. Now, they're the authority. Like, this is what I don't understand about your position. That you seem to think there's no other way.
What is your way?
That you do not abdicate personal authority and responsibility to others. It's your own. Period. It's your own authority. And it's your own responsibility.
Alright, and what are the logical consequences of that action?
That anything that fucking happens to you, you should have the power to prevent or deal with, or it's your own damn, you bear the responsibility for what happens to you.
Absolutely.
Except that's not consistent with a government system. Because if somebody breaks into your house, right?
You're mad that I decide to surrender a little bit of my power for a better life.
No, I'm mad that you think that's the only fucking way.
I don't think it's the only
fucking way.
You
just said that's the only way.
No, it's not what I said.
Okay,
what I said is you can choose not to participate, but you kind of have to because we're all here. There's no other alternative. There are systems of government and society, and there are institutions, and you can affect change within them, but you can't opt out of them without excusing yourself from the face of the planet.
And that doesn't seem like tyranny to you.
No, it seems like collectivism.
Well, I'll agree with you there.
And that's not, quote-unquote, a bad thing.
That is, quote-unquote, a very bad thing. Because it's tyrannical. You don't have the choice. Yeah, you do not have the choice whether to participate or not. Right? That doesn't seem tyrannical to you?
Of course I have the choice.
No, you don't. You just said you can't opt out of them.
I can choose whether or not I want to pay my taxes. But I'm going to suffer the consequences of that. What you're advocating is the ability to not participate without consequence.
No.
I don't see the light at the tunnel, dude. I really don't. I mean, if I take your position and I say that the government is evil and I want to opt out and I don't want
No,
benefits.
the government isn't evil. The government,
okay, whatever.
No,
Fine,
the government
fine.
isn't evil. The government is corrupt.
I'll take that back.
Government is corrupt and tyrannical.
That's fine. I'm not going to go there. I will take that back. That was rhetorical embellishment, and I'm sorry. If I decide that I'm going to opt out of society and be on my own and be completely responsible for myself and my actions and my safety and my nourishment, everything on Maslow's hierarchy, then I may be free, but I also may be dead and malnourished, and that's fine. But I choose not to live that life. I see nothing wrong of surrendering a little bit of my income and a little bit of my autonomy to enjoy a higher standard of living, to enjoy a greater intellectual freedom, to enjoy the ability to travel and express and communicate and create and participate. To me, the cost isn't too high.
And what about for those people who what about for those people to whom the cost is too high? Like, I'm glad that you're happy trading off your
but you are
personal
too,
autonomy.
Dude. I don't see you swearing off the benefits of society. You haven't removed yourself.
What are you talking about? See, you always turn around and you try to say that I'm somehow being hypocritical here, but you won't point out exactly what you're talking about.
I am pointing out exactly what I'm talking about. You still make use of public infrastructure.
I still pay taxes. I'm entitled to those infrastructures.
Because you choose to participate.
No, because I don't have any other fucking choice! I have to pay fucking taxes, which means that I have to fucking finance these things.
Okay, so here's the thing. You have to pay taxes in order to benefit from it.
No, I have to pay taxes because if I don't, I go to jail. Actually, I don't even have the choice not to pay taxes because it's stolen from me before I even get my paycheck. If I could find a fucking island in the middle of an ocean where there was no government authority and I could set up my own little building to live in, that's where I'd want to be. Okay? But I can't go there because I'm trapped under this fucking government. And everybody is trapped under this fucking government. And you want to affect change from the inside, we can do that. But we have to affect change away from government control. We have to shrink government, make its little fingers of sticking into everybody's business shorter and shorter and shorter. Not this, the government is the arbiter, the government is the responsible one, the government has to decide, it's up to the government, I need to persuade the government to do what I want. No, you do what you want yourself, the government shouldn't even be part of it.
But I need the cooperation of other people.
Yes, you don't need the government for that. You need other people to cooperate. No, it is not. If it was just simple cooperation of other people, you wouldn't have things like police forces and militaries and force of arms where the governments show up with guns if you don't do what they decide you should do. That's not cooperation, that's coercion. You don't need government to get the cooperation of other people. You need other people to cooperate with you. And that is the fundamental disconnect that you seem to misunderstand about government. Is government is not of the people. It is an institution that contains people, sure. But they're not there that are acting on our behalf. They're acting on their behalf. And they always have and always will.
That's just not true.
That is absolutely true. Because if they were working on behalf of every single citizen in existence, you wouldn't have people who were going against the government. Because everybody would have what they want. And what they need. But they don't. Because the government cannot make two people who are diametrically opposed to one another both happy at the same time.
And that's why we live in a system that values majority rule.
Yes, and that is inherently a problem. That is tyranny of the majority.
And we try to mitigate that.
That doesn't change the fact that it exists.
Absolutely, but there's no other way.
There's many other ways. You just aren't willing to consider them because you like the idea that you're getting 3 squares in a hot meal or a hot bed every day. And that somehow you're beholden to the government for that.
I'm not beholden to the government. The government's not providing it. It's a symbiotic system. I don't get, like, packages every day from, the federal government or the city of Calgary with my meal. I still have to work and participate. There is a trade-off between independence and collectivism. So where's this island?
Well, it used to be America.
Just off the coast of the UK, actually.
It used to be America.
It used to be America. Whatever. Why are you living in Sealand?
What?
Sealand.
I don't know what Sealand is.
It's this utopia you keep talking about, where you're not beholden to the government.
Because there's no land left. Everywhere there's got a government authority claiming it. Right?
That's not true, actually.
That's absolutely true.
That's actually not true.
Well, I mean, the moon doesn't count because the United Nations has declared that no country can claim the moon. And I think the same thing goes for the planets of the solar system. There's a United Nations declaration back in the 60s or 70s that basically said that no country could lay claim to any government or any land on planets that get developed or something.
That's a spurious argument, though. You're not planning a trip to Jupiter.
No, I'm not. But I mean, the point is that the only places that do
they
not
have terrible summers there.
the only places, like the only land masses that we have that I'm familiar with that do not have some sort of government authority already laying claim to them are extraterrestrial. Right?
No, I said there's a small island just off the UK.
There are several
came up for sale
islands
a
you
little
can
while ago.
purchase.
From whom?
From the
From
current
the
owners.
owners. Yeah.
And the owners are not governments?
That's correct.
Well,
You can buy private islands. Hell, you can manufacture a private island if you have the resources to do so.
Very true. Or you could just retire into, well, I say retire, like, go into seclusion. I mean, on the Penn and Teller bullshit episode that was a few shows ago, I can't remember which one it was, the one where they were talking about,
It's okay, we'll have
the war preparation. Yeah, that Willie guy, he'll look it up, it'll be fine. The apocalypse preppers episode. They had people who lived in the forest, in huts that they built, and they lived off the land as well, so they did that. They'd removed themselves from society, and they weren't part of any of the trappings of government or of a local society. They just existed on their own.
I guess where I see the hypocrisy in the argument is there are private islands that you can buy. It is possible to terraform and create new land masses independent of government control. Right? Is my logic flawed here?
I think that's like saying that a prisoner who's trapped in a cage, who isn't digging a hole to get out, wants to be in the cage. And I don't think that's necessarily true.
That means that he's submitted to some degree.
But that doesn't mean he wants to be a prisoner.
But that he values being a prisoner over being an escapee.
How do you get that?
It's a binary choice.
I don't think it is.
Do you have any thoughts, Willie?
Well, we could bring this sideways if we're going to talk about going way back to the appropriate levels of force and action by the police and go on a sideways tangent to the Trayvon Martin case. And how obviously this fellow of his neighbourhood watch decided that Trayvon Martin was up to no good and needed to be stopped. And took it into his own hands again in that case.
That's not necessarily true.
Well, why did he get out of his car and approach him?
Why didn't Trayvon Martin run away? Why did he...
He did run away.
No, he didn't. He tackled...
Initially.
No, he didn't. He tackled Zimmerman to the ground and started bashing his head against the ground.
Because Zimmerman came at him with a gun.
Why does he need to run away?
Because he's being threatened. It's one of the options. You can either attack or you can run away.
Well, you've
Or
just
you can stand your ground.
Oh, awkward. Well, then, just by definition, you've defined the two actions that he had as was fight or flight, and he chose to fight.
Yeah.
Because he was challenged.
Which is fine. But he has to take responsibility
because he
for
shouldn't
that.
have been challenged.
He's not a victim.
Yeah, he's a victim.
No, he's not. He's as much a victim as Zimmerman is. Zimmerman may have been the instigator. Okay?
Yes.
I don't think anyone's going to deny that.
And the one with the threat as well, because he had the gun.
Yes, but he's challenged Martin or whatever, right? And
But why? On what authority?
What difference does it make? It happened.
Because you were saying that people should have their own personal authority. Obviously, Zimmerman felt his neighbourhood was being threatened, so he took it upon himself to approach this youth who was walking through his gated community and defended his neighbourhood by shooting a random kid who
No,
was just wandering
he
through.
didn't defend his neighborhood by shooting him. And it wasn't a random kid. Okay, he was on the ground, being tackled, having his head bashed against the concrete. That's when he pulled out his gun and shot him.
He already had the gun out.
No, he didn't. This is what I'm talking about. You guys just listen to CNN and fucking Al Sharpton, and that's all
I
you
listen to CNN.
That's all you guys seem to listen to. Okay?
I don't listen to
I don't have
CNN
access to
or
CNN.
Al Sharpton.
Zimmerman
Indeed.
was following
Or
him in his car. He was on the phone with the police saying, there's this sketchy guy I don't like the looks of walking through my neighborhood. And the police said, leave him alone. We'll deal with it. For whatever reason,
go.
which is unjustifiable at the current time that I can tell, Zimmerman decided to ignore the police, get out of his car, go up to Trayvon Martin and say, hey, what the fuck are you doing in my neighborhood? Right? At that point, Trayvon Martin decided that rather than back down or run away or whatever, he turned around and attacked Zimmerman. That is where
Why should he back down and run away, though?
He shouldn't.
If he's been challenged by someone on the street.
You're missing my point. He shouldn't back down. I'm not defending Trayvon Martin. I'm not defending Zimmerman. I'm trying to explain where the disconnect for people who are upset about this shooting comes from. Trayvon Martin chose to attack Zimmerman. Zimmerman chose to engage him. That means that Zimmerman is responsible for Trayvon Martin attacking him, and Trayvon Martin is responsible for getting shot. They both made choices that they should not have made if they wanted to prevent a shooting. Okay? There are ways out for both of them on multiple different occasions.
You're saying it was a logical cause and effect that one thing happened.
No,
and that
what I'm
must have led to
saying
the
is
next, and
that
must have led to the
Trayvon
next.
Martin is not an innocent victim who was stalked and hunted down and shot from the dark like a deer.
No,
okay?
he wasn't hunted, but the guy creeping along behind him, I've had it before when I've been walking home from work, and it's been the cops have been pulling up alongside, this is bringing it sideways again, have been driving alongside behind me, and they slow right up behind you, put their lights on full beam, and if you don't know who it is initially, it's bloody intimidating. If you're just walking along on your own, and all you know is you've got a car behind you with goodness knows how many people in it, doing goodness knows what, and you do not know what's going on, and you dare to glance back and see what it is, and I said for me, it was okay, it's a police car. I hope they're not going to jump out of the car and suddenly jump on me for no reason whatsoever. But, if you look back and see it's a private car, how are you going to react? How did Trayvon Martin not know that there was someone else in the car?
He didn't.
There could have been any number. There could have been any number of things.
Yeah. That doesn't mean he was an innocent victim.
I'm not saying he was entirely innocent.
That seems to be the rhetoric,
saying-
that Zimmerman got
But
away
that's not
with
what I'm
murder,
saying.
and he didn't get away with
He
murder.
did.
No, he didn't.
He did.
It was self-defense. If Trayvon Martin turned and ran away and Zimmerman put 3 rounds in his back while he was running away 25, 30 feet away from him, then it would be murder. Okay? But the fact that
it
Martin
was
turned around,
aggravated
pounced on him,
self-defense.
threw him to the ground, and was bashing his head against the concrete, and then Zimmerman shot him, that's what changes
But
it
then
from
Zimmerman
murder
should suffer the
to
consequences from
self-defense.
initially attacking him.
He didn't attack him.
Initially provoking him.
Provoking him is a
Shouldn't
strong
provoke
word
him.
as well. He was following him, and then he said, what are you doing in my neighborhood?
Well, it's a provocation. If I'm suddenly accosted by someone saying, what are you doing in my neighborhood? Why has that person got any authority to challenge me on what I'm doing in that neighborhood? It's not their neighborhood. They do not own that neighborhood. They may own their property that is built in that neighborhood, but they do not own the entire neighborhood.
Okay.
That's when you start coming around to, gangland kind of control and threatening control that way. I would hope that if I was walking on the street somewhere, I would be pretty free in most countries to walk down the street without threat of someone saying, what are you doing here?
Okay, well then you and I live in different worlds, because I've been challenged on multiple
Thank goodness.
occasions by people and by police about what I'm doing in the current location.
And it's really none of their business.
No, it's not.
Exactly.
I'm not defending Zimmerman. See, you guys seem to think that I'm defending Zimmerman.
I don't think anything. I don't know anything about the trial. I ignored it. So.
Okay.
Well, you're saying that I think necessarily that he got away with murder. I do think he got away with murder
Yeah,
first.
and that's the problem, because it wasn't murder, it was self-defense.
Well, okay, yeah, but it was aggravated self-defense, if that's what you're going to go for. There was no need for Zimmerman to get out of his car. Yes, I admit there was probably no need for Trayvon Martin to attack him, but then you take that action of fight or flight. And how did Trayvon not know that if he was going to run away, that Zimmerman wasn't going to shoot him? At the end of the day, it's America. It's a logical assumption
Yeah.
that most people are probably going to have.
But that's
a
what
weapon.
that's what changes it from self-defense to murder. If Trayvon Martin had chosen to run away and Zimmerman had still shot him, then it would be murder. Trayvon Martin himself is the one who justified his own shooting.
So it was self-defense against self-defense? Against a provocation?
Well,
Well,
Zimmerman
to be
didn't
fair,
attack
we only
him.
have one side of the story.
No, we have a
Indeed.
witness who
Well, no, we have a
watched
witness as well.
it go down. That's how we know what happened. It corroborates Zimmerman's description of events.
Well, at the end of the day, the kid was, how old is Trayvon Martin?
16,
14?
17, something like that.
16,
yeah.
some, yeah,
He's a
somewhere
youth
around there.
anyway.
Yeah, and if you're walking alone late at night and some car is creeping along behind you, you are not going to be in the right frame of mind to go, maybe this guy is just wanting to find out where I am. No, he was creeping behind him, and obviously you're going to be a little hopped up if that's going to be the
Yeah.
case.
I'm not denying that.
But that doesn't give you the right to attack somebody.
But that doesn't give the right of the person to initially accost you in the
He
first
didn't
place.
accost him. That's the thing that a lot of people seem to miss. George Zimmerman did not attack Trayvon Martin. He followed him in his car, he got out of his car to speak to him, and that's when Trayvon Martin attacked George Zimmerman. Okay?
So probably because he was nervous. The guy was creeping up behind him in a car.
But that doesn't make it okay.
No, but then but then shooting him shooting him didn't make it okay either.
He was being attacked. That made shooting him okay.
Can't he answer like force with like force?
So what, you're supposed to flip him over and start bashing his own head back against the ground? Besides, it's not like force with like force. It's with reasonable force.
Better than shooting him.
I don't think so. Trayvon Martin has presented himself as an imminent threat of danger and death to George Zimmerman. That is why he was acquitted of the murder
Death
charge.
thing's a little extreme.
Bashing someone's head against the concrete can kill you. Doing it multiple
Yeah, but
times
where were
will
the marks?
kill you.
Where were the marks? Where were the scars? He suffered no ill effects post the
Yeah, but
the
he couldn't
attack.
have known that if he was while he was under attack, dude. I mean, that's a little unreasonable. To say, well, I'm not going to be scarred by this, so maybe I won't kill
No,
him.
but I admit that. But then, like, if you're getting bashed into the concrete, you're going to take a bit more of a beating than what Zimmerman showed to have received.
Okay, but again, having not gotten into any of this, just based on what you guys are saying, if there is the accused and a corroborating witness, I mean, granted, eyewitness testimony is suspect to begin with, but if that's all you have is those 2 data points, then that's what you have to base your decision-making on.
Zimmerman was definitely guilty of harassment. He's probably guilty of verbal assault, maybe, being a dick, being just an unpleasant person. But he's not a murderer. It wasn't premeditated. It wasn't like he was stalking. Like, premeditated murders don't usually start off by calling the police and saying, hey, look, there's this guy creeping around my neighborhood and I don't like the looks of him.
Okay, so let's step back then. Is this a problem with vigilantism and citizen controls?
It could be, yeah.
So maybe it's just better to let the police deal with it.
I would rather have the police deal with it. They are, as Will was saying earlier on, trained for that sort of situation. They're taken through psychology, they're taken through gun control courses, reasonable discharge. There's all sorts of things they're trained in before they are, in air quotes, let loose on the streets.
They're given education and training not to make the irrational decision. Not to say that they don't occasionally do, but the likelihood is less.
It can also be argued that Zimmerman wasn't in any direct threat either himself or his property. So he would have had no authority even as a neighborhood watchman or a police officer if he were a police officer to make that kind of right. So
this really comes down to just minding your own effing business.
Pretty much.
It's what it is Mr. Zimmerman is getting all uppity in somebody's...
Well, Ducky and I have always had issues with gun control anyway, obviously coming from England, and with their very strict gun control laws. I would argue the fact that if there were stronger gun control laws, then Zimmerman wouldn't have had the gun in the first place.
No, he would have had a knife instead and would have stabbed him to death. It doesn't prevent the murder.
That's becoming a moot argument. I mean, you can already print a gun in your basement, so...
True, it's 3D printing.
The cat is out of the bag, you know. That's going to change. Whether or not we want to talk about lawful gun acquisition, the fact of the matter is that within a few years, it's going to be very easy for anyone to assume that the person next to them is in possession of a firearm. You can buy these 3D printers at Best Buy now.
But in theory, unless you build the model yourself, you're going to be downloading a model from somewhere, and with our wonderful governments, unless you're using a proxy, tracking all of your downloads, they're going to be able to see if you've downloaded it.
Yeah, but that's an enforcement issue. That has nothing to do when you're sitting on the bus next to Tommy, and he's got a problem with your nose hair and wants to take you out because of it.
I just brain image in my head of Tommy with a gun, just pointing it, leveling at a guy. You will shave your nose hair by tomorrow, or I will end you.
Stop holding out your hands, you two.
So what is it? I'm trying to remember the name of the guys that are doing it. I think it's called Distributed Defense, are the guys who have designed and are continuing to refine these printable weapons. And I have to say that I agree with them in one respect. Not that I necessarily agree that everybody should be armed, because I don't. Just because I don't want to live in a world where I have to worry about everyone being armed. It's not a culture that I value.
It's not a worry.
Pardon?
Do you worry about people being armed? Like, why?
No, I don't. And I don't. And I choose not to be armed, and I know the people around me choose to be armed. And even, traveling through Montana, where you could get a Gatling gun pretty easily. I mean, there was one at the firing range we were at. People don't generally walk around armed. Well, they can.
They can be.
But they don't.
That's not true. I mean, there could be people who are armed, and you just don't know it. Nearly everybody I know is armed with a knife. Am I afraid that they're going to go on a slashing
I'm talking about a
spree?
firearm. Yeah, let's not go there. You know what I'm talking about, so don't distort it. What I'm saying is, it's not something that I value, and it's not something I'm worried about. But we've entered a point in human civilization where the fact that somebody is going to be able to create their own virtually undetectable firearm is a reality. And the point of distributed defense, what their argument is if we don't do it, somebody else is going to. And they may not be sharing that. And this comes to your argument, Ducky, where at least if everybody has access, then you never know. And that in itself acts as a deterrent, right? And so that part I can get behind. That doesn't mean that I agree that everybody should be armed, because I don't think it's necessary for society to exist and for people to participate in a society where everyone has to be armed.
Let me rephrase that then.
But that's a choice
they
I
don't
make.
have to be armed, but there has to be the possibility that every person you interact with is armed. That uncertainty is where the doubt lives, and that doubt is where that deterrence comes from.
Yeah, and that's where we are now, is that uncertainty, whether or not we want it through technology and cheap 3D manufacturing and printing in our own basements. It's going to be relatively ubiquitous within a decade, and that's just something that we have to face. So the question is, how do we govern ourselves in a society that has that burden to deal with? Or has that potential consequence? Right?
I imagine being a policeman's going to be a lot harder.
I don't think it will. The police already assumed you're armed. Cops already assume you're armed. I'm armed. I walk out of here 9 times out of 10 with as Ducky said, with a knife. I use it for work. It's got a screwdriver built into it.
They're cool.
It's a Leatherman. I mean, it's invaluable for what I do for a living. I find it invaluable anyway. But push comes to shove, I could, I suppose, stick it into somebody's ribcage. I wouldn't. I don't want to. But that possibility exists. And we all know that everybody could be walking around with a buck knife. That doesn't make our society by default hostile. And soon we're going to know that everybody can be walking around with a firearm. And that doesn't necessarily have to make our society hostile. So the problem isn't necessarily that guns are available. The problem is that we don't have a respect for life, or we don't have a respect for other people, or there's problems with how we're socializing with each other, that there's something fundamentally wrong in our culture that would allow us to value or devalue somebody's life over our own. And I see that as a moral issue.
Well, devaluing somebody else's life over your own is a fundamental staple of self-preservation. Nobody's more important than you are. Except perhaps your children.
But I don't think I have the right to terminate somebody's life just because their interactions with me are inconvenient. Now, if it's an equal threat for threat thing, if he's got a gun and I got a gun and one of us is going to fire, I'd rather be the one firing first. I totally get that scenario. And I think most people would be hard-pressed to disagree with that, at least on a logical level.
Unless they follow the way of belief.
Well, whatever.
He's always got to throw up little mini-arguments, hasn't he? You say I'm antagonistic, you're way more antagonistic than I am.
You know, I think in 1995, Ducky lost a dildo up his butt. That's really what happened, and it just has not come out.
Well, you mean it's malignant, it's still there, lurking.
I'm just kidding, buddy. But, no, yeah, so, whatever. You can say, Willie, that you value a gun-free society. It doesn't exist. It hasn't for a long time. And that illusion is only going to wane. And you can thank distributed defense for that. You can thank 3D printing. You can thank the advancement of technology. So how do we deal with that? And I don't think we're going to end up in a society where we have to worry about George Zimmerman's, because he already exists in the exact quantity that, you know what I mean? Like, the weaponry doesn't produce more aggression. I don't think it does.
No. It's just the ability to act, well, any kind of weapon's going to give you the ability to act on that aggression.
Yeah. As Ducky rightly points out, I mean, you could... Why does Tommy have to have a gun? Tommy can have a knife.
Or a screwdriver.
Right.
Which is for Leatherman.
Yeah. So... I've agreed with you.
I will admit I like to live in my flowery little world in my head where guns aren't necessary, and I think that's where my disconnect comes in, is I'm projecting my own values upon what I would like for society to be like, as opposed to what I know it actually is like, really.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, honestly, I think it takes more bravery not to arm yourself when you go outside. I think it takes more courage and fortitude to trust your fellow man not to kill you. I mean, it sounds absurd because we live in a society where we take that for granted, but there are societies where people don't. I had a coworker who grew up in Johannesburg, and
oh, blimey.
You know, as a kid, he was armed. I mean, they have rape gates and razor wire, and their rooms have steel bars on them, even with inside the house. And that's just the world he lived in. His first vehicle had a what they called a theft deterrent system that was essentially flamethrowers that were mounted underneath the vehicle. And they showed me video of this thing, and he just hit a button, and anyone within 5 feet of his vehicle was roasted. That was the type of society they lived in. And there was a ubiquity of weapons and violence, but the weapons don't bring the violence.
Oh, no.
Because the Americans live in a society where that same technology lives. And there is a violence problem there, but it's not because, you know, the access to weaponry is relatively the same, maybe even easier in the United States. But the culture doesn't allow for it as easily as it does, say, in Johannesburg. So, to everyone who decides to get up every morning, whether or not you realize it's a choice, and not harm yourself, good on you. I think that takes courage and fortitude. Fortitude. Takes a lot of fortitude to go out and do that.
Seems stupid to me, but...
And when I wear my knife, I don't think of it as a weapon, I think of it as a tool.
It's a tool, yeah. See, that's the thing, is weapons... Anything can be a weapon so long as he who wields it has the will to make it so. Right?
Mm-hmm. Very true. I will admit, I have... And I guess this is just from not really having to be pressed on this issue ever before, but I've never really seen a gun as a tool. I've always seen a gun as a weapon.
Well, it's a very specific single-use tool.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, you're not going to cook with it, or
well, you can cook
open with UPS packaging with it, or... I mean, you can.
How would you cook with a gun, Ducky?
Slowly and loudly.
Slowly and loudly, yeah.
And it'd be probably the most
I'd burn
expensive.
the edges of everything.
I don't know, maybe you want s'mores on the barrel of a machine gun. Who knows? It could work.
I wonder how marshmallows would work as a silencer.
Probably not very well.
The point is, a gun is a tool that takes a piece of metal and moves it very quickly from one space to another space. Right? That's what a gun is. Whether it's pointed at a door to help you break into somebody's house, or it's, pointed at a rampaging dog who's about to chew your daughter's arm off, or it's pointed at, a pop can that you can't get fucking open. I mean...
Wow.
You have aggression problems.
Appropriate levels of force there, yeah. I mean, I struggle with a pop can. I get a knife or a pen lid or a coin. Coins are brilliant.
Well, you know what they say, when all you have is a semi-automatic rifle, then everything is a target. No? Okay.
Who says that?
It was a play on when all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail.
Oh, okay.
You get... Oh, wait.
Tough crowd, man, tough crowd.
Well, we've gone from giggling to yelling and screaming at each other to...
I still waffles, you guys!
Oh, I have furry thoughts and feelings too, buddy.
Furry?
Yeah. We actually got a hit on the website the other day for furry femboys.
The hell?
Yeah. Anyway.
Sorry, did you say what I think you said?
I did. Again, no judgment on it. Well, okay, there is a judgment on it, but it's... whatever. It's not a moral judgment. This is a very unique subculture that keeps showing up in my server logs for this podcast.
Well, it's definitely an interesting movement from dog sex to furry femboys.
Yes, it is.
I like the alliteration. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you said we had no Scanscape today?
no soundscape.
And no song.
Well, I can probably find music, unless you have music.
I don't have music. Too busy to find music.
Did we even really give an opportunity for a break? Is it going to be like, right, there's going to be a break here?
No.
Yeah, you should just put that in the announcement. Like, sorry, Will and Ducky got into it, there's no break.
Yeah, they definitely got into it, Jesus. That's why I sat here quiet.
I don't like it when
Mommy
Mommy
and
and
Daddy
Daddy
were
are
fighting.
fighting.
Yeah.
What can we use? We can use anything from AM Static, Roy Matheson Transit, or the Kimberlites.
Ooh, Kimberlites. I liked Kimberlites. They were good.
Did you?
Yes.
I
Okay.
didn't.
That's because you have bad taste in music.
I like Transit.
You like Transit better?
And AM
They're both
Static.
Christian music.
There's a difference between Christian music and worship music.
Well, that wasn't worship music.
Yeah, I know.
Although there is a version of Amazing Grace that they have, which is
What,
Very
Transit
good.
or the Kimberlites?
the Kimberlites.
Ooh.
Yeah, their CD is actually really, really good. I was quite surprised. All right, well, for the non-theists in the group, I'm sorry, but it's good music, so we'll just end off with the Kimberlites. Peaceful, easy feeling. See you next week.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Tis grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Well, I've got a peaceful, easy feeling. I know you won't let me down, 'cause I'm already standing on the ground. Through many a danger, toil, and snare, I have already come. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. Well, I've got a peaceful, easy feeling. Oh, yes, I do. I know you won't let me down, 'cause I'm already standing on the ground. Well, I've got a peaceful, easy feeling. Oh, yes, I do. I know you won't let me down, 'cause I'm already standing. Oh, yes, I'm already standing. Yeah, 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 and I'm already standing on the ground.
Thank you for listening to Hardly Qualified. Remember to check the website at hardlyqualified.ca for news, updates, references, and to learn how to support the podcast. Please review and rate us in iTunes after each episode to help get the word out. If you're a Facebook user, like us and share with your friends and enemies at facebook.com/hardlyqualified, where you can also join in on the conversation. A special thanks to the artists who have donated music to the podcast. We greatly appreciate your work. As always, artists may be found in each episode's reference section. Again, thanks for listening, and remember, knowledge starts with questions. Don't fear them. We'll see you next week.
Three, two, 1.
Yay!
Long awkward pause.
So 10 seconds of silence. Who's trying not to laugh?